There are several ways of looking at creation. My favorite is to look at it as the dance of Ishvara and Shakti. It is the way the seers and sages saw it. All around we see the dance of Shakti, seemingly rhythmic, seemingly reckless, but through all of this dance, he ultimately is striving to fulfill the Ishvara. So Ishvara also, he steadies the dance, steadies the feet. That is the Indian image of Shiva lying, and his breast he has offered for Kali's dance. Somebody needs to steady her feet. And so Ishvara steadies her feet. So there are, at any given point of time, anywhere in the universe, these two aspects which are playing the game, and we are caught in it. Sometimes carried by the whirl of Prakriti to who knows where, though it is to fulfill the Ishvara. Sometimes, very rarely, identified with this stable basis, but most of the time carried in this dance. This dance has two modes before we come to the subject. One is the dance of Kali, which is tremendous. It changes time so rapidly that before we can even imagine, the ages are the footfalls of a tread. That's how Sri Aurobindo writes. Sometimes it takes a very sweet dance of Krishna and Radha when life is beautiful. So in this dance, because Prakriti is infinite and the Ishvara is infinite, so it is not a monotone. I don't know how many types of dance exist in nature. Human beings' dance is only one, but dance, rhythms, patterns, all a dance. Millions, countless ways, because she is infinite. She loves to dance. But lest the dance becomes completely chaotic, there are some nodal points. So in the dance, she has created a web, patterns, formations for stars, galaxies, creatures, seers, sages, saints, gods, demons, and of course we humans. And through the dance, new patterns emerge, new creations emerge. And yet this wonderful, delightful, dangerous, incomprehensible dance has something within it like a knowledge, a will through which it operates. So there are, in this entire universe, we see always these two aspects operating. One is the web which is created through the dance, the web of nature, through which the will of the Ishvara manifests in countless ways, knowledge and will operating in countless ways. But there are also some nodal points where the Ishvara presides in his aspect, one aspect or the other. So one nodal point is, of course, each individual, each of us has something of the Ishvara within us, like an aspect of the Supreme which needs to manifest through aeons, through journeys of lifetimes. Life, death, rebirth are themselves a pattern in the dance. And neither death is not the end, of course, in Indian thought, but rebirth is not about reward, punishment, but just about learning the dance. So through this process of journey, each individual is meant to express that aspect of the Ishvara which is embedded within. And there are a lot of things about, that can be spoken about it, but that's not the subject. But within each individual, it manifests as the Swadharma, the dharma within. It is this dharma is nothing to do with going to church or temple or mosque and praying this, that. This dharma is the unfolding. Literally, dhra, that which holds. Unfolding of the truth within us. That's the simplest way. And through this unfolding of the truth, we evolve. If we are aligned with this unfolding, the evolution is much faster, swifter, smoother. If we are not aligned, which is what adharma is about, and time, spirit, and everything, then there is this complications which are created. He allows it because he's the master, so he can steady all kinds of feet. So this is the individual level at which we see the individual soul and the dance takes place, dance of Prakriti. And we all know that most of the time we are carried by Prakriti and we do not know where. But if we identify with the Ishvara side, we'll know where and how she's taking. And through all this dance, she is preparing us to master her. That is the interesting part. Looks like we are her slaves, but she is carrying us to master her, become her master. At another level, this dance also takes place at a cosmic level. The world soul, where the Ishvara presides not just as an immanent divine, but as the master of the worlds, the cosmic being. And we see this entire dance of Shakti taking place all around, a pattern which we find very difficult to understand. Stars which are born, they die, galaxies which take birth and die as a result of this dance. Not die, but absorb back into the footsteps as she moves. This is known in Indian thought. But there is a third level of the dance which has not been much spoken about, and it is what can be called as the soul of a nation. This what? So there are three nodal points at which the Ishvara, with his unique will, is expressing itself. Now, the nation is through a collective unit he is expressing himself. Individual is Swadharma. Now, why this has not been known? It has been hinted. There is some talk about Rashtra Dharma and etc. But it is more in a general way. Why it is not spoken of much in the ancient scriptures? Because nation units are relatively new if you take the long passage of time. And they have formed, they collapse, and they come up again. It is still a kind of work in progress. And that's where each nation is meant to represent and express some aspect or the other of the Ishvara, infinite Ishvara, as the nodal point. So there is the nodal point in the individual, and there is also the soul of a nation. As Vladimir was saying, the three steps of Vishnu, the individual, the nation, and the world. These are humanity. These are the three steps. So each nation, just as each individual is meant to fulfill one or the other aspect of the idea that is embedded within our soul, each nation has its own destiny. And just as each individual is not just the soul, but a body, a mind, and a soul, so also each nation has a body, a mind, and a soul. The body, of course, is the geographical boundary, which is yet not fixed in many nations. Very often it's created in a very natural way, like we see in India, some countries. And then it has a psychological or a mental mind, which is created by all the individuals which are living within us, their cells. And each of these individual contributes. Through this psychological body, we see the emergence of culture, which is the highest point that a nation can give. A nation unit, the highest, the best, the noblest. And for each nation, it will be unique and different. That's how it should be. It's not a monotonous dance. And then, of course, the soul of the nation, which expresses itself through the ages. So this is a larger picture, and then we zoom in onto India. So what does India represent? What is the soul of India? What is the role in the world? We can only understand if we see the soul of India. Now, what is the soul? Soul is something which remains the same through all it grows and evolves, but it doesn't get destroyed. It is the one element. Civilizations come and go. Of course, there is a difference between civilization and culture. Civilization is something more outward. It has to do with the systems, the law, order, administration, etc. Culture is what the thought and feeling of a nation creates as the high points. So when we look at, like we talk about Indus Valley civilization, there's a civilization, how it's built. But when we talk about Indian culture, then we talk about Kalidas and Vyas and Valmiki. That's the culture, the Ramayana and the Mahabharata. When we talk about Japan, the samurai, that's the culture. But when we talk about civilization, it's about the administration, the efficiency, and the way the whole system governs. So that's there in every nation unit. So in India, the manifestation of the divine seems to be as is very evident if you look through the Indian history, to be the spiritual guru of the world. This is so evident. It's like, if you look at the Indian history, the one common refrain, thread which runs through the entire history of India, never there was a time period in India when there never were any spiritual beings, sages, saints, seers, to carry on, to give the light to the world. Never. Even in this fallen ages, what we call as the dark ages, even then we see the, Sikh religion which comes, we see the saints, Bhakti Marg, many of them, north, southern part, east, west, everywhere. We see these saints who were carrying the light, even in the darkest ages. So always the role of India has been to be the spiritual guru of the world. And in certain sense, in this sense, we can say rightly that it is the soul of the world. If you look at geographical history of India, how India is formed, to me, I find it very fascinating. And number of times I have watched it, the way there was one continent, then split into two, and then they move. It's amazing. You can literally feel that when one part touches the other, I'm forgetting now the names, what is it, Eurasia or something, no, not Eurasia, Polynesia, and it hits another part. So you see India literally like a heart going and touching it, joining the two. Then of course, further drifts take place. And through that, the Himalayas come into existence and the oceans. It's like the world finds a heart. And if I look at India, just its features, it does look like a heart. So it is its special role. It is a yagna which is going on in India. And what kind of yagna it is, to understand India, we need to understand what this yagna is. So, that's how we have to see, not just outer parameters. So very often we hear this, India had such rishis, munis, saints, sages, Vedas, Upanishads, Gita. Look at the condition of India. What's happening there? Well, I am not going to enter into politics. Come now and see Gujarat and Ayodhya. But I just want to put it very simply. Which is the place, if a student is doing his, kindergarten, primary, secondary school, he is given certain challenges through which one has to move. But when you want to do PhD, then the challenges are many more. Every person who is engaged in yoga knows this. That when we have to make a progress, the challenges that come are far more intimidating. Of course, some have taken the challenges earlier, lucky ones. Some have to face it. So India is doing PhD in evolutionomics. And don't look for dictionary meaning of this word. But in the economics of evolution, so we see that all the problems of the world rushing towards India to find the true solution. It's very beautifully described in ancient fables. So you see, it's not only today that India had to face through this, last 1,000 years, all this onslaught. Always, if you go back to Vedic times, we will hear in the Ramayana stories that all kinds of invasions took place to destroy the yagna. And I don't know why they wanted to destroy the yagna. Poor fellows were doing some fire sacrifice. Why it is being destroyed? Precisely because it is through sacrifice that whatever element is there in our nature gets purified, refined, and then you can use it for the world. Sacrifice is basically a process of inner alchemy. The ancient Christian mystics, when they spoke of alchemy, they were speaking of Tantra. They didn't know what they're speaking, but they knew, but people around didn't know. It was a Tantra where you put in all the energies, and these energies get purified and refined. So the asuric elements don't want this kind of refinement and purification, because this refinement and purification means creation will advance. That's what our journey is, from the gross to the refined, to the subtle, to the purer forms of things. So this yagna which goes on in India, we see from time sempiternal, always we see attacked by the asuras. I don't know why they have taken such a fancy to come to land जहाँ लोग कहते हैं ना भूखे नंगे लोग रहते थे. Why they were rushing here? Because there was something in India which they knew can change them. When someone asked Sri Aurobindo, it was in the ashram context, all kinds of people come here. So, why is it so? He said that first of all, if only the goody-goody type came, the sattvic nature people, then the problem of the rajasic, tamasic and crude natures will remain totally not worked upon. So they have to come. Second is that where else they will go? The refuge of the lost. And third is that they come for refining and purifying their elements by offering themselves into the yagna. This idea of a yagna taking place within a country and its fruits is embedded in the Indian stories. One story which I love, many of them I love, but I like probably, or love. Okay, I love, fine. Whatever it means, I love these stories. I love the characters of these stories. Is the story of Sati. It's very beautifully describes about a nation. So the story of Sati is in the hoary past. Nobody knows which past. You don't even know whether the action is taking place on the physical plane or in the supraphysical plane. Most likely in the supraphysical planes. But through that, the physical plane story will manifest. Like the Devasur Sangram. It's not taking place on physical plane. Please don't look for a Kshirshagar and all that happening here. But it's taking place on another plane and it spills. And a little bit of that Amrit spills where of all the places in the Sangam in Prayag. So that's why every 12 years the sadhus go to take a dip. They are fighting somewhere up above. When few drops of that bliss spills, of all the places it has to look for India. That river, Ganga, Yamuna, Saraswati, and get into that place, Sangam. And that's why it becomes such a special place. Apart from all of them having a mystic symbols, and I must resist my temptation to get into stories. But this is the story of Sati. So no one knows that time. It's like a world, world is which is run by a gentleman called Prajapati. He is the lord of the king, Praja. All the human beings are under his control. He is the Pati. So he has made rules and regulations through which people must move. That's how, every country, everybody makes the rules and regulations. But what he has done is he says only you will grow by rules and regulations. But he doesn't like Shiva. Why he doesn't like Shiva? Shiva is freedom. You can't put him in any slot. You can't say he is like a beggar because he lives like one, because he can grant any boon that he wants to. So how can he be a beggar? He is riding on the bull, but all the wealth of the world can be at his command. So they don't understand. He says, no, this degree of freedom I cannot allow. So once he has a yagya, he calls his daughter Sati, who is married to Shiva. That's a long story, interesting story. And he deliberately says Shiva won't come, because if he comes, he upsets the balance. If he comes, people start taking him as an ideal. So they say, we don't need Ferrari, we'll be fine on the bull, we can wear a, mrig chala and roam around, we don't need these rules, regulations, freedom, all, so no, let him stay where he is, he loves Samshan. After the dead, you go to the abode of Shiva. So Shiva is denied entry and Sati comes. She is, of course, nature, spirit of nature, which wants to be with Shiva. And she sees that Shiva is disrespected. To cut a long story short, she plunges into the fire in this world yagna. And she leaves her body. Then a melee follows. Shiva comes and out of a strand of his hair, Veerbhadra comes. All quick scenes, I'm just saying as a trailer. So the rest is there in the Eternal Feminine, this story of Sati and Parvati. So he comes, Veerbhadra comes and he destroys the entire yagna. This is not how you can do yagna. You can't govern the world without God. You deny entry to Shiva, that means you deny entry to evolution. He has to break the patterns for new patterns to emerge. And if you want to fix things in a standardized perfection, a rational order, then it's like fixed in disorder. See what reason does? This is what it does. It puts us in a kind of loophole within which everything is in its place except for going beyond it. Reason will deny you. You want to go beyond, so it says, no, let's argue out. And there will always be two parties, one believing in God, one doesn't believe in God. So it ends up creating a division. So Shiva, ultimately Shiva comes, it is destroyed, and Shiva carries the body of Sati. And as he is carrying the dead body of Sati and lamenting that a world had forgotten the divine, Vishnu comes from behind and cuts apart into some 51 or 52 parts, depending upon how you take it. And all these parts fall at different places. So when they fall at different places, you know what comes out of that? It is the spiritual map of a united India. If you draw a formation, it's like a formation all around. And with that, the soul of India is born. It's a new Yagyavedi. It is okay. If you are trying to do just the word Yagna, we'll create this. So the soul of Indian nation is born. All around there is the Shakti Peeth, extending also into Balochistan, just for information. So all this area becomes a Yagyavedi, and within this, Parvati is reborn, and she is the purified earth. She is the purified form now. Sati has gone into Yagna. Parvati comes and she unites with Shiva. So Shiva and Parvati becoming one is the union of the divine soul and material nature. That's what we see in the Shivlingam. It is the divine soul and material nature coming together. This was foreseen. This was the purpose for which this Yagyavedi that we call as India is formed. Now in this Yagyavedi, everything has to come to be purified. You can't have only very nice, goody people. So India has another very interesting speciality, that you will see the best, you will also see the worst. Where will they go? If you see the worst kind of nuttiest cases going to a doctor, what does it speak of? Does it speak something about the patients, or does it speak something about the doctor? It speaks about the healer. The healer is capable, he can heal. The worst cases can come and he can heal. So we see this strange paradox in India. The highest that thought could envisage, the greatest philosophies, countless, the Vedas, and always there is a new addition. After 3 Vedas, the 4th one came into existence. Then even Atharva Veda, then they called Mahabharata also as a Veda. And of course, Savitri is the ultimate Veda. So you have always this constant Veda, the secret knowledge unfolding itself, the Upanishads, the Shat Darshanas, the Puranas, call it, and then the literature. Vyas, Valmiki and Kalidas alone are enough to, ride over everything. On one side you see all this. On the other side you will see the most corrupt politicians, systems. Not now, fortunately things are changing, and I am saying this with completely apolitical things. Things are changing for good, and personally I am experiencing it. Many people. So this is because they come for purification. Why? Because before I can be a guru, I must myself would have solved the challenges. How can a healer who has never treated a case, that joke about a surgeon, that a patient goes and says, "Doctor, please be careful. I am undergoing surgery for the first time." And the doctor says, "Don't worry. It's my first time also that I am operating upon. I am operating upon someone." We are on the same page. So India has chosen to undertake to find the lasting solutions to all the problems that vex humanity. So it draws, absorbs, assimilates, things get purified, changed to the extent they can be changed. And if they cannot be changed beyond a point, you see all these, when the invasions took place, you see they underwent, they tried to change but underwent themselves a change. During the British invasion, we see that people talk about they looted Kohinoor and God knows what all was looted. I don't have a count of it. Many things were looted. But knowingly, unknowingly, they also looted the Bhagavad Gita. That's how it went. In one of the loots. And they discovered the book, and the world discovered the Gita and the wisdom. So always they come, They come because they want the problem to be solved. And we see this secret in Savitri where Sri Aurobindo says the avatar must bear every pang and sorrow of the world. How can he otherwise solve? And that's something very beautiful about Sri Aurobindo and the mother. That's why I don't like going to Swamijis who never got married and sannyasis. Say, what will you understand, sir, of our problem? You don't even know the problem. You are giving solutions. I hear them, all the pulpits, they will say, no, husband and wife should live harmoniously together. They should never fight. So I sometimes ask, sir, are you married? Talk about it later. It sounds so wonderful, idyllic. Never scold children, be always, all the solutions in the world. Even about job, they will give lectures on how to be in a corporate sector and job. Sir, have you worked in an organization? No. So we see Sri Aurobindo and the mother, like all avatars, they take upon themselves all the problems. Then they can say, because then it becomes authentic. Otherwise it has no meaning. It is just like shooting in the air. So India has taken within itself all the various problems. It's an amazing country where you see not only people often speak about heterogeneity and diversity. India is not only diverse in terms of the religious beliefs and the different streams of cultures and nationalities coming. India is heterogeneous not only today, since ages before other countries were formed, in terms of another kind of diversity, which is the real diversity, different psychological types of humanity. It always knew that there are 10 psychological types of humanity. I am not talking of the DSM-4 or 5, 10 personality disorders, 10 different types of psychological types of humanity, ranging from the Rakshasic, the Pishachik, the Asurik, to Vanara and, Pashu, and so on, and Manushya, then Deva, Gandharva, Deva, and God knows, 10 different layers of humanity, and you'll find all of them there. It's a marvelous discovery to make. So, its role is essentially, when we use the word, Mother has said, Sri Aurobindo has said, India's role is to be the Guru of the world. But this Guru of the world doesn't mean just simply that, a Swami from India comes, gives a nice lecture, and that's it. That's the minimum. It's not about lectures. It's about working out a problem within its being. Whether it be the problem of unity in diversity, the original plan of God. Unity in diversity has very little to do with all religions coming together and shaking hands and saying, let's have an interfaith dialogues. That is not the original diversity. That's all human encrustations, fossilization. Diversity is the different ways through which human beings have expressed themselves. Or rather, God has expressed himself through humanity. This diversity is fascinating. And then, behind them all, one unifying principle. To an extent, Sanatana Dharma had solved it. You see, how did it solve it? It said, regardless, you may have this belief, this path, that path, countless paths. If you just read the number of sects that exist in Indian thought, and all under one rubric of Sanatana Dharma. You try to define Sanatana Dharma, it's so difficult it escapes all definitions. All that we need to know is that there is a truth eternal, and it is this truth that has built the world, is unfolding itself. That's all that is required. It doesn't matter, give it what name or any kind of thing. So it almost solved this problem by accepting, accommodating and assimilating all these different approaches in search of the truth which is ultimately behind creation. Even a scientist who may not believe in God but is moving towards that in his search, pursuit, is part of that larger Sanatana Dharma. In Auroville, when this is the experiment incidentally going on in Auroville, so human unity. So when I think it was Russians or probably who said, no, but we don't believe in God. We like your project. But, they had not heard the story of Prajapati. So they said, we don't believe in God, but we like your project. All are brothers. So then Mother asked them, okay, they don't believe in God, it's okay, but they believe in progress? Yes, we believe in progress. We believe in perfection. Says, okay, substitute the word with perfection. That's it, as simple as that. So it's not necessary that, It has to be in this format or that format. So in a way, India had solved these problems. So it has that know-how. At one point of time, it knew how to deal with all these various challenges. For instance, before all this thought came in, there are elements. Then how do you, like, all are one? Nowadays we always hear all are one, all is good. Yesterday we also speak on love all. What does it mean? So we can touch upon it. So if somebody is there, so what does Sri Krishna do in the Gita? If we have to love all, why is asking? Dhananjaya, raise the Gandhi, arise, shoot arrows. It's not just a metaphysical or, it's a real command given. On what basis? And we see that Indian thought always saw that the collective march of mankind is the important issue. And if something stands in the way, be it Kansa or Ravana or Hitler or the Kuru clan, you have to fight. Nothing individual. It's not an individual hatred that is fighting, but for the love of the world, for the love of the divine manifestation. So it had given an answer to this. Just imagine, this is such a complete answer in contrast with the human mind creating one dogma, be non-violent towards all. I mean, how do you do that? Even in your own life, if you adopt that attitude, you will remain stuck there. There are a lot of people who suffer because of this. They come and tell me, sir, how to make this decision, because if I take this decision, my mother-in-law is unhappy, my daughter-in-law is unhappy, my wife is unhappy, my sister is unhappy, my husbands are not unhappy, not supposed to be unhappy. So, finally, he has to say checklist, okay. So I tell them, look, always somebody will be unhappy. That's never a basis of taking decision. If you take a decision based on that, you will be ever confused. So what is the basis of taking a decision? So Indian thought will say, dharma. That's it. Keep dharma in the center. And it was interwoven in the fabric of Indian life. For instance, what's marriage about? Marriage is about dharma. How? In the center is fire. Not in-laws, for God's sake. Not husband, not wife, not money, not Empire State Building, not Mercedes, nothing. Fire. Try to get into the center, you will burn. Don't play that I am at the center. Dharma. What is dharma? The upward rising fire. It's always symbolized by fire. Agni, that which takes us forward, ever forward. So keep that. If husband and wife come together and they know that our life is meant for a forward march, individually supporting each other and collectively supporting the larger play, life would be beautiful. Where will be time left to, discuss and argue, you did that wrong and I did that wrong and you did this and I did this. Center is this. So center is dharma. You see, it had tried to solve all these problems. These solutions exist, but they need to be given a new form. So often when people come together, let's say husband-wife scenario, and they come, sometimes they fight in my room for 2 hours and I have to go out because I don't know what to do now. Yeah, it happens. I had such a situation, they are fighting, so I go out and say, I'm closing the door when it's over, tell me, I'll come and sort out. So all that is required is to ask, what is the center point of your life? Is it wealth? It won't last. It will collapse. Is it something outer? It won't last. Is it dharma? Yes, you have a chance. Work through that. So in every sphere of life, in education, what is it, the education? You see, people talk about, so what was the first 25 years when people went into this ashrama, when they were being educated? What was taught to them fundamentally? It was dharma. What is dharma? Not that a religious book was taught to them. What is at the basis of everything? What is the basis of creation? Understand dharma and everything else. So if one wants to understand Indian thought, one is to understand dharma, which is unfortunately has been mistranslated as religion. There is no concept of religion the way it is understood in Indian thought. You may go to a temple, you may not go to a temple, you may even disbelieve. It doesn't matter. Dharma is something much more fundamental. It's inbuilt. It is that which holds creation. Dra, Dharana, Dharti, Dharitri, Dhuri. It's all about that which holds. What is the core aspect of our existence? What is the core? So that's what one has to search and find. And today is the time when world is struggling for that. We are trying all kinds of outer solutions. It won't work because it must find this core. What is the core of humanity? It's not just in our surface. We can imagine a situation where all human beings come together and we have world unity and we have a grand party. What will be served in the party of the world unity? Chicken tandoori and fishes from the oceans. And when we have exhausted that, we look for aliens to fight with. It's not that world unity which is important. Human beings for the sake of humanity. This never has been Indian thought. Humans for the sake of divine. The value of human is not what he is, but in what he can become. Otherwise, we can have a world unity by some kind of, there have been attempts at world unity by the formation of empires. Every empire was an effort at world unity. But it collapses because that core is missing. So, human beings coming together and becoming one. All human beings from today, as Tolstoy's son had told the mother, we all will speak the same language. Then humanity can become one. What a naive idea. People who speak the same languages, put them together in one room, they will start fighting in that language. And he even said the language will be Esperanto. Sometimes much better if people don't know the same language and they are maybe even wedded together because they don't understand whether this person is praising you or he is accusing you. So you are safe. But if you have the same language, chances are very high that you will fight. So that was not the solution at all. See, all this has been worked out. We just have to dig out and bring it out before the world. So this is the basis, the solution that it gave us, dharma. Second is spirituality. It's the master key of Indian thought. And that's where we see this division between the way fundamentally Indian thought is built. In a certain sense, all Eastern thought. In the West it was there, but it began to lose itself. Their metaphysics, spiritual leanings have been all over the world, mystics all over the world. The other day we talk of them as poets, but Blake's poem, I think Brother Narad was mentioning few, my own favorite Blake, hold eternity in a grain of sand. Now these are all mystic experiences, though we speak of them as poets, but they are mystic poets. So when we look at this spiritual element, what is the fundamental difference in India's vision? India says that behind all these ever-perishing things, there is a fundamental reality which cannot be destroyed, which is indestructible, which is divine, which is purest of the pure, which is holiest of the holy. And that we must discover and base our life on that. That's what spirituality is about. Spirituality is not about a practice. This is going down many notches. Ravana meditated for 1,000 years. What came out was a 10-headed ego. It's about what is at the base. And at the base, if there is this indestructible element, immortal, imperishable, Akshitam, Aksharam, that's how, Shri Krishna received the mantra. Akshitam, Achyutam, Achyutam Keshavam Ramnarayan. That's how it goes. So, there is something which can never be destroyed, which is the purest of the pure. If you identified with that, that is a sense of spirituality. But when you identify with the body, Dehe Atma Bodh, then you have an Asuric civilization, which revolves around simply the physical vital needs. All its progress is always subject to collapse. Does it mean that it is not needed? It is needed. But the basis should be this. That's how Sri Aurobindo says East and West must come together, but the basis will be Eastern. By that he means that we must understand and accept that there is a divine reality at the base of this creation. Then only anything carries a meaning. Then outer progress and all this can take place. So this is India's work, her special mission and role, to reveal this truth, not just as some various paths of, to find the divine. In the heydays of India, that was not the only thing. In the heydays of India, it revealed how that truth can manifest in every sphere of human existence, a dynamic spirituality. So when we look at India, every dance in India owes itself to some aspect or the other of God. You have Bharatanatyam. You have, from Shiva, the music comes, language comes. When with the right hand he does the Damaru, Sanskrit is born. If the left hand it comes, Tamil is born. But Tamil and Sanskritists will fight who is superior. In Shiva they are one. That's how Shiva Tandav's throat. So Nataraj. So everything, dance, language, everything comes from this reality and it's connected to that reality. It's a different thing that it's forgotten. Sometimes we become too much externalized and follow it ritualistically. That's a different thing. But the core is this. And that core is something very beautiful in every sphere. Literature, art, poetry. You see, it celebrates this one who takes diverse forms. So when we go back, and I gave a few examples, education. As Sri Aurobindo says, everything in India is a sacerdocy. When a child is born or conceived, it is a sacred act. So how it is a sacred act? Because it's not just a body which is coming, but the soul which is going to take birth. So there used to be Garbhadhana Sanskar, 7th month. Some people do it 5 months. Now you see this problem of abortion never occurred. 7th month you have the Garbhadhanam Sanskar, meaning thereby now the soul is watching over. You do the Sanskar and something so beautiful when you look at that whole thing. That, then when birth takes place, there is another Sanskar. When you feed, it is Annaprashan. So you have puja and you feed. And then when you have to start writing the first syllable, so you utter in the ears of the baby, Om or something like that. And then you write first letter, what you'll write after holding. So it becomes, everything becomes a puja. By puja is meant something sacred. There's something unique about the sense of the sacred which we have completely lost. See, this is the problem with a kind of thought which, a kind of reason. I'm not saying that reason cannot show you the sense of the sacred. It can. But this is a kind of reason which deconstructs everything. It takes away the sense of the sacred and makes everything, deconstructs it, makes all on level ground. This is the oneness of death. That's not what India is. There is the sense of the sacred. Something so beautiful, the world has forgotten it. It is even regarded, why? Because it was relegated, even in other parts of the world, it was relegated in some special places. When you go to church, sense of the sacred. When you come out, you are looking for a smoke. That's not how the sense of the sacred in life, everything is sacred. That's why when people used to die, so how do you pay respect in India? So when people die, you go there and do pranam. So somebody asked me once, "Ye to mar gaya, isko pranam kyun kar rahe hain? He's dead. Why do we do pranam to him?" I said, you see, look carefully. Even in the shower, Shiva resides. Even in the dead, Shiva resides. Somebody had asked the mother, where does sense of sacred comes from? It comes from the divine presence. Somebody had asked mother that, sometimes we see picture, this, that, thrown here. She said the divine presence is in everything and everywhere. From there comes this idea of taking care of material objects. If you look at the entire handicraft system, the way it's such love and care which is poured into creating a small piece of art. It's a worship. So the idea of worship was to treat everything with the sense of the sacred. When we do that, then life becomes a worship. It becomes a prayer. This was the great message of the India. But then, yes, it was lost. It had to be eclipsed, and there was a purpose behind it. Also, this individual yagna started in India since the time of Sati, had to spread into the world. So nations came searching for spices in India. They came trying to discover India. But in discovering India, they started discovering their own soul. So this is the way India as a guru has to give its gift of light to the world. That's what Mother has said. India's role is to be the guru. And this guru is nothing to do with Gerua Vastra. This guru has nothing to do with wearing a mala and putting a tripund and sitting on a pulpit with big garlands and saying nice slokas and telling bacha, you be happy. It's nothing to do with guru that way. Who is guru? Guru has no external markers. Guru is The one who carries us towards light, also heaviest in terms of jnana, he is a guru. And what is the role of the guru? To show light, impartially, impersonally, without asking money. A guru who asks money, that's why in ancient India, it's very interesting. You see how education was carried out? When in ashram school, there is no exchange of wealth. Even in Auroville, it meant to be like that. No teacher is paid, no student is charged. And no donation specifically by the rich and famous for the school. You can donate to the ashram. And when mother was asked, Mother, why you have kept it like that? She said, education was never sold in India. Why it is not sold? Look at just one simple thing. And what is the profound meaning within it? Can you put a price tag to knowledge? Can you say in $1,000 I am going to do this course? Can knowledge ever be? If you put a price tag, you have reduced it. It's infinite. How can there be any price tag to knowledge? So then how were they running themselves? These people who were teachers. That's why there was the concept of Guru Dakshina. You out of your own voluntary, or the Guru can ask. He has the freedom. But it's not a price tag. He can ask anything and you give as Guru Dakshina because there is no cost. You cannot, knowledge is the highest value. You cannot just put a price tag. So the disciple was ready. Whatever you ask. There are interesting stories of the Guru asking disciples strange things. Go to the forest, get 100 cows lean and thin, make them 400 and return. Sometimes to annex a kingdom, sometimes a piece of thumb. And in all these stories, there is a deep, profound meaning. The adhikar, what he's learning. So it was called Guru Dakshina. Same thing applied to physicians, incidentally. I do believe seriously that these two professions, there should be no change of money. People should joyously if they feel. So for physicians, how will they survive? So I used to have this, how can one live? I also don't want to charge. Fortunately, mother kept me free of this. But then I found somebody told me something in Ayurveda. See, here it is written. So what was written? Yavat kantha gate pranaha. Till you have breath, it meant like this. Till you have breath in your throat, make sure that you have paid to the physician. Otherwise, you have no place in the other worlds. He has given you life. So I used to say, this is not fair. I changed it a little. Yavat kantakate pranat. This is breath. Physician, you better treat. Don't give up. No euthanasia and all that. But this was the way system was organized. Certain things were kept sacred. Each group of another very interesting aspect. Violence. We often talk about violence, non-violence, violence. Indian thought recognized that violence is an aspect of creation in nature. It is there stars are destroyed, the dance of Shiva, Kali, she too is Godhead. So what do you do with the violent impulses that are there in mankind? Give them a channel and a direction. So there was the Kshatriya type, the knight, the samurai. You have these aggressive impulses. Train them, discipline them. Use them to defend the right, to protect the weak. That's how you direct this violence, so that it can be rightly channelized. If you don't train and teach a generation, then what happens? People become mercenaries. They become, WWE wrestlers. They do things for money. Another good way to channelize the violent impulses is in sports. Sports also you can do that. So this is the message that India has to give to the world. It's not simply there is God, there is soul within, there is rebirth, start believing it. That's not the true Indian thought. The sense of the sacred, the one expressing himself in diversity. Indian thought celebrates diversity. That's why you see the number of dances all emerging from one, including some of the things which one finds unspeakable. Even there is a shastra, and you see connected with something uplifted. It's unimaginable. Kama Sutra. It's a shastra. You read it. It's not just about sexuality. It's about two beings who love and then they come together and how they join, even the role of the physical. If you read it for long, you wonder what is it about? Because it's 90% is about purification of nature. 10% is the actual act. So this is how one has to understand this large, vast Catholic spirit of India, which in every field of nature experimented, tried, then put its results. And it's still continuing to do that because new challenges are going to come. But for that, India must regain and recover its true spiritual impulse. And on a closing note, that's what I feel. It's a bit of maybe stamp of ascetic spirituality for a long time. Even till today, majority of Indians still feel that the sannyasi in the ochre robe is the sign of the yogi. We have to shake off this slavery to a kind of thought. Well, sannyas is all right. It's one of the paths. But the Gita speaks of tyaga. Somebody was speaking of aparigraha. Tyaga, not sannyasa. Sannyas is an externally leaving things but carrying it inside. I am non-violent outside but I am very violent inside. They're dangerous. But tyaga is when there is an inner renunciation. It need not manifest in anything outward. Where inwardly you don't possess anything. You know it doesn't belong to you, but you use it wisely, rightly. So this is the only thing which I still feel India needs to correct. That's why India had to go through a phase of extreme involvement in a Rajasic form of life, even now, which is good for the moment. Because pursuing the sannyasi's life, it fell off from that Shakti. When Sri Aurobindo was asked, why did India fall? It had all these things. He said, because of want of Shakti. We have all the jnana, all the gurus will come and talk this Vedanta, that Vedanta. But there is want of Shakti. How does Shakti come? She is the dancer. We discover the Ishvara inside and be fine. In the dance to bring in the Ishvara, in every movement. That's why you have mudras, gestures, postures, namaste, this, touching the feet. Why touching the feet? For everything there is a beautiful reason. Because feet are the path through which the power transmits itself. That's why we do pranam and that's why we do touching the feet of the Guru Master. It's not a ritual. When you touch the feet, if you look at the human system, it's like earthing. You receive from here and pass it from the feet. So when you touch the feet of the Guru, when Mother was asked this, he said, it's because the power gets transmitted through the feet of the Guru. That's why we have this line in Savitri, both. First the Mother, and where she presses her feet, course miraculous streams of an entrancing Ananda. And in Savitri, all nature dumbly calls to her alone to heal with her feet the aching throb of life. In the entire human body it saw gods and goddesses. Every center, speech had to be taken to its highest intensity, paravak, mantra. Speech must become mantra, it gesture. So that's why this namaste. I bow down to the divine presence in you. My own favorite is this one. Yeah, in the heart. Not like, hi, it's okay. Nothing wrong with it. I mean, it's okay. It's come. But this gesture is so beautiful. Just to touch to the heart. Something because this is the seat of the divine presence. People who do ECG know that this is the electrically neutral point. Cardiologists know it. So this is where there is the divine presence. So everything has to be treated with this. Even in fight, there was this code of the Kshatriya. He cannot just fight ruthlessly like a mercenary. He has to, always be aware that outwardly he is fighting, but inwardly there is this oneness, even through the fight, even while he is fighting. I'll close with this story of Mahabharata. How India looked at world and creation. So as the story goes that Kauravas and Pandavas have assembled to fight. Holiday of a fight. They have different agendas. And in that course, suddenly a warrior arrives, all ready to kill, and he stands on the side of Pandava. Who is he? He is an illustrious son of Arjuna, through one of his marriages in the northeastern parts to a Manipuri princess. And he comes, he is a Mayavi. He says, I heard there is a fight going on. Yes. Are these Kauravas I'll slay. I just need, he has got supersonic, super nuclear weapons. So he, before anybody, there is jubilation in the camp. He takes an arrow, shoots, and almost all are swaying in state of unconsciousness. Arjuna also had this vidya. Sammohini says, now I just need the other one and I'll chop their heads. At that time, Shri Krishna slays him. Can you imagine the mystery of the divine working? It was not as simple as Pandava and Kaurava, good and bad. Krishna slays him. But now everybody is surprised. Victory was right there. Of course, Krishna has plans. The arrogant Kshatriyas are not only on this side, but this side also. But whatever it is, he grants to this head that you will become immortal. The consciousness in the head will always remain. You know, all these were vidyas. 64 vidyas, including the vidya to withdraw yourself completely from the body. That's how Bhishma could stay on that bed of arrows. Because he had mastered by his will the art of withdrawing completely from the physical consciousness. These were all vidyas. Highest of which, of course, was Brahma Vidya. So this fellow is there and war is going on. 18 days, war is over. All of them after the war, hey, we won. I was the one. So I killed maximum. It was all full of I. So Krishna says, why don't you ask? This fellow has seen the whole war. Yes. So they go to this. He is now revered as Khatu Shyamji, but otherwise barbaric. So he goes and they go and ask him that, tell me, what did you see? Who is the greatest warrior of us all? And the head laughed. They say, why are you laughing? He says, you're asking who is the greatest warrior of all. He says, he didn't even lift a finger. Who? He looked at Krishna and smiles. He says, he was the only fellow, only one fighting on this side and the other side. Just imagine, on the surface you see two armies engaged in fight in a gory war, which is a fact of important fact, crucial fact, necessary for the civilization to advance. Sri Aurobindo says that Shri Krishna, through the Mahabharata, saved India and the world. People talk about bloodshed, but he saved India and the world. He says, but deep behind there is oneness. It was taking place. That's what Shri Krishna shows in the Vishwarupa. So always this play of oneness and the diversity. And if we can just live with this, we would have found the secret of unity. If in every aspect of life you can bring in the divine. When we say all life is yoga, what does it mean? To bring the divine in every aspect of life. Even walking, even gestures, food, offering as prasad. What is it? Sleep. Every aspect, waking up. All these aspects, we can bring in the divine in everyday life. Then life would grow beautiful and be prepared to receive the divine, and even this instrumental personality undergo a change till we have a divine life in a divine body. This is the lesson and the message India has to give to the world. It will give to the world. It is beginning already. And more we see these solutions to the world problems must come from India, and India must show the way how to deal with these various challenges, whether it be the challenge of poverty and richness. Not capitalism, not communism. Again, one last thing. Last, okay. So you have Indian socialism. Very often people say Vedantic socialism. What is Vedantic socialism? We don't just believe in just putting human beings together and, distribute equally. And human beings are not the first and last word of creation. So Lord Rama is described very beautifully by a poet. He speaks of Rama and he says, Ganika Ajamil, Byad, Geet, Gajad, Khal Tare Gana. Whom does he love? He loves Ganika. Ganika is a courtesan, a dancer, a lowly woman. Ganika. Ajamil, a butcher. Byad, a hunter. Geet, the vulture. Jatayu, we know how he gives the funeral pyre. Ganika, Ajamil, Byad, Geet, Gajad, the elephant who is tormented by the crocodile. Khal, the worst of the kind. Tare Ganai. All of them he took into his fold and liberated them. This is the idea of the divine we need to have in life. Not divine of some sects, some religions, limited to a certain section of humanity. This liberating power of the divine. Whoever touches Gautam Nari, whoever touches his feet can get liberated. This is the mighty vision of the divine who dwells in all. How to worship him? India gave a wonderful formula. Patram, Pushpam, Phalam, Toyam. What should we take to the Lord? Take anything. Take a basil plant leaf, a drop of water, everything he accepts. A small little story with which hopefully I'll stop. So, it's a very short one. So somebody, this told me, clairvoyant lady, she went to the ashram and she went into Sri Aurobindo's room and she had put a nice envelope marked donation she will give. So suddenly in the room she's searching for the envelope and she cannot find the envelope. So she is feeling all flustered. What should I do? Where did I keep? Suddenly she hears a voice. His clairaudience is there. She says, you can offer your money anywhere in the ashram. Here, offer yourself. Here, give yourself. And then she comes back and says, it was a life-changing experience. When we go to the divine, we give ourselves. And if there is not this completeness of giving, there is not this completeness of transformation. Each grain that we have given to the divine is a grain which will be transmuted into gold. And everything that we have held back, as Sri Aurobindo said, I have lived like a thief. That Sri Aurobindo is saying. I always say, Lord, please don't say like this. But he wrote, I feel like a thief that I have given only 2 annas to God and kept 14 annas to myself. This joy of completely giving ourselves to the divine in love. Not even for receiving some, not even for progress in yoga, this, that, all that pales into insignificance. Just this joy of giving oneself to the divine. And as a result, naturally when the divine accepts us and takes us, what is going to be the result? The result will be transmutation into the being of the divine. He whom he embraces and takes into himself cannot come back the same person, unchanged as ever. So all the many stories are kept into the background, and that's it. We can have the questions at night. Thank you so much. May the world live up to its glorious future. And may India take the lead and rise up to the height of its challenging mission. But first, India must discover its own soul.